Now, Russia has again hit cities and energy infrastructure in Ukraine overnight. Ukrainian authorities have said that 10 people were killed, 40 were wounded in the attacks, including on a residential building in the western city of Ternopil. Ukraine's energy ministry says power cuts are affecting a number of regions, and this comes as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky's travelled to Turkey for talks with his counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Well, our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale has the latest on those attacks on Ukraine.
Pretty much the whole country is suffering power outages at various times. Most of them scheduled power outages, but there are emergency ones too when particular power stations have been hit. And again last night they were among the targets. The focus of last night's strikes, and look at the numbers, 470 one-way attack drones fired from Russia, 48 missiles fired from Russia. Now, Ukraine is getting better at shooting those down, but inevitably when you're firing that sort of number, some get through. And as you say, particularly hitting focused, it seems, on western Ukraine. And that strike on apartment blocks in Ternopil, we know has caused a large number of civilian casualties. Latest figures we hear, at least 10 killed, dozens injured, including children. It is the biggest attack on that city of about just over 200,000 people in western Ukraine since the start of the war. So they are having to deal with this on a daily basis, and then also trying to rebuild their energy infrastructure, which then gets hit again. And it is very, very difficult, as you say, with winter approaching, and it is getting much colder. You can feel it.
And Jonathan, on that trip of Zelensky's to Turkey, is he hoping that Turkey will take up that role of a negotiator with Russia? What's the aim of this trip?
Well, I think when it comes to the so-called peace negotiations, which haven't got very far, it is the US leading that. What I think the significance of Turkey is that President Erdogan is somebody who speaks to Russia. He has friendly relations with President Putin, and he has friendly relations with President Zelensky, and he can be a mediator. So I think more crucially and more immediately, when you're talking about prisoner exchanges, Turkey can help. Turkey, as a matter of interest, has supplied weapons to Ukraine in the past. I don't think it's publicly admitted that, but it has helped Ukraine to some extent. But really, I think the background of what you could call the peace negotiations that haven't gone very far are still being led by the US, and we know that Steve Witkoff, who is President Trump's right-hand man when it comes to talking peace, has led the negotiations in the past, has been in contact with the Russians. There have been further discussions. We don't know the details of what they discussed. We understand they will be briefed to European leaders too, but really it is not Turkey leading that, it is the US.
Our defence correspondent there, Jonathan Beale, joining us from Kyiv. Well, Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski says that he's authorised the closing of the last operating Russian consulate in the country in response to the blowing up of a part of a railway line between Warsaw and Lublin. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Donald Tusk said Polish services had identified 2 Ukrainian citizens working for Russian intelligence as suspects in the railway sabotage. Both suspects have already left the country via a border crossing with Belarus. Well, Tusk said that this comes as Poland temporarily closed 2 airports in Rzeszów and Lublin in the southeast of the country early this morning after it scrambled jets to protect its airspace on the western part of neighbouring Ukraine. So a lot of developments. Let's discuss them with Jacek Siwiera, the former head of the National Security Bureau of Poland, now senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. And so you served as the National Security Advisor to the President Duda, during the war in Ukraine. The relations between Poland and Russia have never been great, but given what we're seeing on the ground, our understanding is that the Polish airports, Rzeszów and Lublin, have resumed operations, but regularly we are hearing that they are closing.
Yes, so the relationships are getting worse with each every situation and which every next tension provoked by the actions of the Russian Federation and the services of Russia. As you mentioned, the risk which we faced related to the sabotage attempts with blowing up the railroads and the trails It's reflected in diplomatic response already. So with the declaration that the consent for activity of the consulate in Gdańsk will be withdrawn.
And yes, exactly. And you join us from Gdańsk, where that last operating consulate will close. Russia's said that it's unfortunate. But when it comes to what we saw over the weekend, it dominated, of course, and is still continuing to dominate the news across Poland, that act of sabotage on the railway line between Warsaw and Lublin. It's critical because, of course, that is the route where aid then goes through into Ukraine. Just bring us up to date with the latest on what we know about the two people that are thought to be behind it.
So services collected all the necessary information. We know who they were. We have the SIM cards. We have all the informations about their activity related with logging of the cell phones in the network. They travels in Poland. Also, the fingerprints were secured. These are the informations which were in the media. But let's be honest, even if I can dive into details, in public release for many years, there were a lot of informations of the sabotage acts like that, with the scale is unprecedented.
And for those who say they find this surprising, because Donald Tusk said that these are two Ukrainian citizens working for Russian intelligence. What do they gain from this? Are they paid? What is the thinking that these people are undertaking these acts of sabotage?
So to these days, those sabotages were prepared by unskilled and untrained people recruited via the social networks and paid very poorly. It's not a surprise that recruitment is done among the people who are vulnerable, but they come from the Ukrainian diaspora, sometimes from criminal circles, sometimes without the other choice in their life, just to achieve not only the kinetic effect of imposing a great risk on the civil society in Poland, but also on the logistics to supply Ukraine, and also this specific political and narrative result, impact, which can split and divide Ukrainian and European alliance and suppress Europe from supporting Ukraine in their struggle for freedom.
Jacek Siwiera, thank you so much. Former National Security Advisor to the former President Andrzej Duda during the Ukraine war. Thank you very much for joining us.